And welcome to Nancy's Neighborhood, folks, on this wonderful fall day. We're really enjoying it. A lot of things going on for the next 2 weeks in Cleveland, Bradley County, and I'm so thrilled to have as guests today two people to tell you about two different events that are coming up that are things I think you will be interested in participating in. And the first person is Randy Wood. And Randy, I meant to say to you before we got started, welcome, by the way.
Thank you.
My grandmother was a Wood, and so we may be related.
Maybe.
I don't know. But Randy's here today to talk to us about the Fort Hill Cemetery walking tour. Now, this isn't a new event. This has been going on for several years.
Yes. Thank you very much, Nancy. This is our 12th year of doing the cemetery tours. About 13 years ago, a couple professors and the Historic Society and a few folks came up with a couple ideas to do historical reenactment or something like this. And so every spring we do the Historic Homes Tour, you might have heard of.
Yes.
So that's our spring event, and in fall we do the Historic Cemetery Tour walk. So this is our 12th year. The way the tour works, let me explain that, and then we can discuss other things.
Okay.
But the way the tour works essentially is we take about 10 or 12 sort of characters or families and assign those characters to my students at Lee to do research in the archives. They go to the Historic Branch Library here in town, and they do research on these characters and these families.
Now that is really neat. So you don't just hand it to them and say, here's who you are. Okay.
Not at all.
You do say here's who you are, but you don't tell them anything about them.
Yes, and in some cases we don't know anything about these folks. Some families are sort of famous, the Myra Inman or something,
right.
but others we don't know much about. So they begin work in late August on this research project. They work for several weeks. About mid-semester we start checking in, and after we work on the biographies, then we determine exactly who we might be able to portray. And most of the students who do the research end up performing in the cemetery tour.
Oh, good, okay.
As either one of the characters they researched or perhaps one of the others, depending. But this group of students, they're senior history majors, almost all of them, and they've been working, researching, and then eventually performing. So once we have the list and do the research and determine who will perform, then we go up to the cemetery and we start making sure that we have a sort of tour route that we can do. So it's kind of fun to explain this to folks. We basically have a person or a couple stand beside the gravestone and personify that individual. So they introduce themselves as, hello, I'm Myra Inman, or whoever it happens to be. And after about a 7 or 8 minute monologue or dialogue, if it's a couple, they'll go to the next spot. And we have about 8 to 10 sort of spots on the tour.
Oh, wow, okay, that many.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's about an hour to an hour and a half tour, depending on how long our folks talk.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And if they've done all that research, Randy, they want to share. And
Exactly.
so I'm sure that they want to do this. Now, before you go any further, let me ask you, does everybody in the class get to participate, or do you raise your hand and say, I want to be a person, or how does this work?
Very good. It's volunteer. I don't make them perform.
Okay.
All of them do have to do research. That's part of the grade.
Okay, so it's part of the grade, but performance is not necessarily part of the grade.
That's totally optional.
Okay.
I encourage them because even those who have said over the years, oh, I could never do that, they do it and they say, oh, it was great. They almost 100% have said they would do it again.
Oh, wow.
So I tell the students who are a little nervous or shy about it, just no, you'll love it. And they do.
I just think it's so neat. Now, they do dress the period.
Yes.
Now, are they responsible for their costumes? Do y'all have a costume closet? How does this work?
Very good. Over the years, we've built a pretty nice costume closet.
Okay.
And so we try to be, we're not, too obsessed with getting exactly right.
Right.
We try to get the period right and the styles right. This year, we're in the 19-teens.
Oh, okay.
So these will be costumes from the 1890s to the 1920s, essentially.
Okay.
For most of our characters. But yeah, sometimes we have to, get our costumes from a variety of places. This year, for example, the Sergeant Alvin York State Park is going to allow us to use a couple of their replica,
Wow.
not originals, of course, but
Right.
For soldiers to wear.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, so you'll have some World War I
Yes.
soldier. Okay, all right.
Yes.
Are you surprised I knew that part of history?
No,
but
no,
that's
not
World
at all.
War I. Okay, all right. So, so we're up there. We're standing in front of a tombstone, either one or two people, and so kind of tell us what happens then.
Very good. So a sort of tour group of, maybe 15 or 20, depending on if it's nice weather, we have big crowds. If it's cold, a little smaller.
Right.
But a group of maybe 15 or 20 will sort of walk up to the gravestone. We'll have a tour guide, and the character will say, welcome to the cemetery. Thanks for coming by. Usually they'll say something funny like, I haven't seen anybody in 100 years. And then they present their sort of story.
Right.
I'm Myra Inman, and this is my story. And we don't take questions because that would kind of bog up the tour. So after they're done presenting, they say, thanks for coming by. Hope to see you again sometime. And they move on to the next person.
Okay, so I'm assuming also one of your history students will be the guide.
Precisely, yes.
And do you reuse I know that sounds funny.
No,
do
that's
you
good.
reuse characters, or every time has to be somebody new that you haven't done before, or is there a time lapse between 5 years and we can redo this person?
We don't have a tight schedule. We do repeat some. Part of the trick is creating a tour that they're not too close together, they're not too far apart.
Gotcha.
Physically. So we often do use people that we've done before if we need them at a certain point. The Harrell family makes an appearance almost every other year. They're spread out, and we can use them regularly.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
But I should say too that many of the tour guides are Cleveland State history students.
Oh yes, because Cleveland State, the
Yes.
gentleman at Cleveland State, and please refresh my memory. His name is Brian.
Yes, Professor Brian Reed.
Brian Reed. Yes.
Yes.
And we had hoped he could be on with us today, but could not. So so this is kind of a work between Cleveland State, Lee University, and the Historical Society.
Exactly.
And
Yes.
that's awesome when
Yes.
people partner together like that.
Right, it's great, and we've had the Museum Center help us in the past too.
Oh, good.
So
Okay.
it's been a great partnership of local groups.
So now, if I'm interested in going and participating, not being a character, but going and meeting some of these historic characters from the 1890s to 1910s, how do I go about doing that?
All right, very easy. On Sunday at 4 o'clock, tours will start. Usually there's a pretty good crowd right at 3:30. So if you want to come it lasts till after 6. But the only confusing part is parking. This confuses everyone
yes. Mm-hmm.
because the cemetery really doesn't have parking on the sort of other side of Fort Hill. There's a tiny parking lot there, but essentially you have to park either at the Boys Club and Girls Club. There's only a few spots there, or Cleveland Christian Fellowship on South Ocoee lets us use their parking lot, which is down the hill from the cemetery. So either of those two spots. And from both locations, we'll have a Lee University van that will pick you up and take you to the tour spot and drop you off at the tent. And once you're there, you can get your booklet.
We have a booklet too.
With
Okay.
biographies and a few pictures and a map. And that's sort of the $5, get your booklet, and then wait for a tour to begin. And
Okay, now is it just one tour at 4 o'clock, or are there's several?
Great question. We do tours every about 15 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right.
And again, it depends on how many people are there. If by the time 5:30 rolls around, there aren't as many people, we might wait 20 minutes before we get a group of 10 or 15 to go on tour. But we will send out about between 12 and 15 different groups.
Oh, okay.
So it's every 15 minutes for 2 hours
You have that
plus.
2 hour time
Yeah.
span. Okay, and you will still have daylight
Yes.
because of the date. This is this coming Saturday, folks, October the 28th, because the time change will not happen until the next weekend, so you will still have daylight at 6
Yes.
o'clock.
Yes.
So approximately the last group will probably come up in the van at 5:45 or
Yes.
maybe even 5:50.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So, and the $5, explain what
Yes.
that's about.
Very good. $5 covers the cost of putting on the tour, costumes, and various pieces that we might need for the tour, and the printing of the brochures. And then anything that's left over, which isn't a lot, but anything that's left over, we put in the William Snell Scholarship Fund at Lee.
Okay, and William Snell was our
Yes.
county city historian for
Yes.
years.
Right,
And so I think it's great that we're now funding a William Snell scholarship at Lee University.
Yes.
And I just think this is so exciting. I have never done this before. I have a friend who's done it every year.
Oh,
She's
good.
not going to be able to do it this Sunday because she sings in the First Baptist Choir, and they're previewing their new CD release. So,
Oh, wow.
so she's
Okay.
very upset that she's not going to be able to do this. And you know, in a town the size of Cleveland, you would think we could get things so that everything didn't back up to everything
Right,
else, but that
right.
doesn't happen. So, do you want to share with us who some of the characters are that we're going to
Yes.
visit?
Yes. Again, our sort of theme this year is focused around the 19 teens. This is 1918, right? 2018, the 100th anniversary of World War I.
Okay.
So that's the centerpiece. So all the characters will have some connection to either the war or Cleveland during this
Okay.
era. It's also the year of the Great Flu epidemic.
Oh.
So we have a scary moment in time. It's also, of course, the year that Lee was founded.
Oh, and this is your 100th.
Yes.
And, yes. Okay.
So we will have on the tour F.J. Lee, Flavius Josephus Lee, is buried in Fort Hill, and he'll make an appearance on
I
this
think
tour.
that's awesome.
Yes, it worked well that 1918 kind of put all these pieces together. So we'll have a few World War I soldiers. We'll have Dr. Carl Speck, the Speck
Oh, the
Hospital.
Speck Hospital,
Exactly.
okay.
He will, of course, he served in World War I and is known as a medical doctor, and so he'll make an appearance. We actually have four African American characters, historic persons. One of them, again, well known in town, Nina Howard, a great educator, well known in the Cleveland community. She'll kind of start us off this year. She'll be our first person on the tour.
And this is awesome. I just think it's wonderful that you're doing this. As a former teacher, I think more things you can do like this. Kids can sit down and read a history book,
Yes.
and how exciting is that? And have a test remembering dates. No. So I think this is awesome to allow the kids the opportunity. I can say kids, they're young adults.
Right.
To allow these young adults this opportunity to do this research and to actually do the tours.
Yes.
And be the actors
Right.
in the event.
They love it. They're sort of nervous at first, but when they see that the pieces come together, they're doing original research in the archives, sometimes characters that we don't know, that aren't famous. So doing typical good historic research, then presenting that to the public. We often call that public history.
Right.
That really gives them a sense of how important history is.
And have you by any chance looked a week ahead to see what your weather's going to be?
I have.
Okay.
I guess potentially the hurricane might, I think that's breaking up fine. So last I heard, there might be some showers coming in late Sunday, but hopefully it's later in the
Late,
afternoon,
yes.
early evening.
Yes.
But we're hoping for 60-degree weather.
I think that would be awesome. That would be an awesome fall afternoon to do
Yes.
this. And this is on Sunday, folks, on
Yes.
October the 28th. And you start loading the vans about 4 o'clock.
Yeah, a little before that, by 3:45
Okay.
we'll have, yes.
So if people want to be first in line, they probably need to get there about 3:30.
Yes.
At the Boys and Girls Club or at, what was the church?
Cleveland
you said?
Christian Fellowship on South
Cleveland
Ocoee.
Christian Fellowship.
Yes.
And that way you can leave your car parked there, and the shuttle will bring you to the
Yes.
cemetery and then
Bring you
take
back.
you back to wherever it is you've parked.
Exactly.
And I just think this is awesome. I've never been. I'm not making
Maybe
a
this
promise.
year.
I'm not making a promise about this year because, but I just think it would be so awesome to see the students dressed up and performing
Yes.
as these people. And I think it's great that you're doing World War I and that you're celebrating Lee's 100th
Yes.
anniversary too with Mr. Flavius J. Lee.
Yes, exactly.
And I think that's awesome. Anything we've left out that you need to tell the public?
I think that's got it. If you want to avoid the busiest time is at the beginning.
Okay.
I often tell folks, come at 5:30. It's usually less
Oh.
crowded then.
Right.
But come whenever you want. We'll be there. The last tour will step off about 6:15.
Oh,
and
okay.
that one does end in the dark. So if you are
Oh.
interested in the sort of dusk and the last tour being, that one is kind of the lanterns are lit and we end in the dark. it starts, 6:15 still light.
Right.
But by 7:15 it's
Yes,
dark.
yes.
So-
And this is not a Halloween
Not at
spook
all.
show.
Not at all.
This is just, you do it in the fall.
Yes.
Because this is a great time to do it.
Yes.
And so nobody's going to jump out from behind the tombstone and say boo.
Not at
so,
all.
So this, now, ages, what do you recommend? Anybody in the
Anybody.
audience? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
We have elementary age kids. We have college kids, seniors, all types of people come, and usually we have about 200 or we've had
Wow.
up to 300 people come through.
That is fantastic. Randy, thank you so much for being on with me today, and I really appreciate it, and I think this is great. One final question that I have for you. Have you been involved in this all 12 years?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so you're one of the founders of this
Yes.
situation. Thank you so much. If anybody has any questions, is there any way they can get in touch with you before Saturday? Okay, or Sunday, I'm sorry.
The history department number at Lee is 423-614-8137. That's the easiest number to call.
Okay.
That'll get right to my office. I think the Lee website has an announcement.
Oh,
on the
okay,
tour.
so on the Lee website,
Yes.
okay. And that's leeu.edu.
Yes.
Right, leeu.edu. We talk about dots all the time here, .orgs, .coms, .nets, but this is a .edu because it is an educational institute.
Yes.
So, Randy, thank you so much
You're
for being on
welcome.
with me today. I just think this is a great event, and I'm just tickled to death that's coming up Sunday from 4 to 6, and everybody knows where they need to go to catch the ride up to the cemetery.
Excellent.
Please don't drive up into the cemetery because
Right. There's nowhere to go,
There's
right.
nowhere to go, and if you park in the road, that messes everything up.
Thank you for
So,
saying that. That's
yes,
good.
so
Yes.
please meet at one of these two locations. Randy, again, thank you so much.
All right.
Folks, don't go away. I want you to watch our commercials and support our sponsors because they pay our bills. And I'll be right back with another guest who has another event you can do this weekend. But it's all going to work out just fine. I mean, you can go one place and then go another, or vice versa. So don't go away. I'll be right back.